Well, good morning, guys. Well, it's interesting, that saying, because usually you hear it on the morning news. They say good morning and then they tell you why it's not good morning. And I was a little reluctant to even agree to do this video. My brother said I should. And yeah, it's been a little while now. It's been about a month. And I was dealing with it and kind of processing it all. And I kind of, at this point of the game, I kind of feel that I should share with you guys, the viewers. You guys have been around for 2+ years now, and you guys have grown close to Bean as much as I have been close to Bean. Bean, my little fur baby, my beanie buddy. She's passed away, and yeah, it's been a rough go, to be quite honest with you. I don't know if you guys have ever lost a like a family pet. Bean she's been with us for about 7 years. We didn't get Bean really young. We actually adopted Bean when well, at this point of the game would be at middle age. We got her when she was about 6 or 7 years old. We adopted her from a coworker for my wife's work. So Bean grew up living in a condo, I believe, in the city, and she had regular walks, on the in the concrete jungle in the city, and so when we adopted her, it was a little bit of a culture shock for Bean. Bean was now free to run and play in the fields and chase crows and bunnies and squirrels and everything. She immediately took to eating sticks. She was my firewood collection pal. She would bring me sticks. My first dog as an adult. I had a little dog when I was a kid named Gizmo, and yeah, it's not the same. I don't think it's the same when you're an adult and have a dog. So when we originally got Bean, she was my wife's dog. She grew up around women, so she was a little skittish of men, any man. And what's funny is because I brought her on so many adventures, she eventually became my dog. She would sleep on my pillow if I let her. Every night she would basically crawl on my bed and then dig a little hole and crawl under the sheets, even though every single time I would basically tell her to, can you get out of under my sheets, get off my pillow. And anytime I would come into the room, she would get out and crawl to the foot of the bed and sit there. She knew she was breaking the rules, and she did it anyways. And she had a big personality. She had quite the attitude. She was always filled with anxiety for whatever reason. She was wound pretty darn tight. She was aware of every sound, inside, outside, anywhere. She was aware. She would bark at the drop of a hat. Now I know you guys don't really see that on camera. She was shy of the camera for whatever reason. She always kind of took a back seat to that sort of thing. She wasn't a ham. She always reluctant to be on camera. But Bean always was the one. She was always in the background. She'd pick a spot and she would sit there all day and she would watch. Whether you were, running the log splitter or running the excavator or, running the backhoe, she'd pick a spot and she would lay down in the dirt, in the sawdust. She was in there, and she became a tomboy almost immediately. If you were doing it, she was coming with you regardless, rain, shine, whatever. She could be soaking wet, completely covered in mud. She was loving it. She always wanted to come back for more. Bean had a pretty unique habit of taking her food. She had special dental food, and if you've ever seen that, it's the size of like a small, like a half-size golf ball. And what Bean would do is she would take one of them out of her bowl and she would go somewhere and eat that kernel. So she was consistently taking little kernels of food and hiding them. And she would hide them in her bed, and she would hide them in my bed, and she would hide them in the couch, and she would hide them everywhere. So it didn't matter where she was, she always had food readily at hand to just snack on. And I think that's why she stayed so little, because she ate pretty much constantly. I'm not sure how she stayed that little, actually. But she had food, caches of food everywhere. And Frankie's job, she's a Bouvier poodle. So Bean is a Shih Tzu poodle, and Frankie is a Bouvier poodle. So anyways, Frankie, later on, we got her a little bit later, but she would have this game of finding Bean's food and eating it. And what's kind of, I guess, endearing is that, so when Bean passed, Frankie didn't quite understand what was going on. She would come in the room and she would root through Bean's bed, and she wouldn't find any kernels. And I think that kind of made her a little upset. And so daily, like a couple days after, she would look through Bean's bed, look for kernels, didn't find any. And then one day, I see Frankie bring kernels of food and tuck them in Bean's bed. And I don't know if it was like Frankie was asking for Bean to come back. I don't know, it was just strange. It's strange that the animals, they understand. Like, they know. I think Frankie knows now that Bean's not coming back, but it was a really sad kind of moment when you understood that Frankie wanted Bean to come back. I think they were arch nemesis, actually. Like, Frankie would antagonize Bean, and Bean would chase Frankie, and Frankie just figured Bean was playing, and Bean would hang off the side of Frankie's face, and they would just rinse and repeat every day. And I think that's just gave Bean a little made her like a puppy again, right? You got the younger dog and just antagonizing the older dog. Like, that's just the circle of dogs. Bean's favorite place to stay is in a vehicle. Any vehicle. She would crawl into anybody's vehicle. If you stopped on the side of the road and asked Bean to come in the car, she would, and she would stay there. She really enjoyed the car. She didn't like when it moved. She liked when it was stationary. So what I would do is, if in the shoulder seasons when it wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold, I'd bring Bean along with me, and she would camp out in the truck or the car, and she loved it. She would stay there like the whole day. She would just, have a nap. I guess it's just quiet, it's comfortable, it's protected, and that's what she liked to do. And she didn't like to leave the cars or trucks. I think that's like, if you could build it, if Bean's ideal house would be just a car. And on the warmer days, what I would do is I would actually leave the truck door open, and Bean would come and go. She would like hang out in the truck, and then if I was doing something interesting, she'd hop out and she'd run over and check, see what I was doing. Or yeah, she loved vehicles. She loves like laying in cars. And Bean was a really smart dog. She understood what you said. She may not listen to you all the time, but she knew what you were saying. She was cat-like in that regard. She knew, but she just didn't care enough to listen to you. Like, for instance, you would be sitting there and maybe you'd have a cup of water, and you'd be sitting there and you'd have your water, and Bean would come up and she'll tap you. She'll come up and just tap your glass. And you'd be like, okay, what are you doing that for? And you'd realize that Bean's water dish wasn't full. She wanted more water, so she'd tap your glass. Anytime you had water, and she would drink right out of your hand. You could just kind of put a little puddle in your hand and she'd drink it. Or yeah, she would tap you to let you know that she wanted water in her dish. Never seen that before with a dog. It's just this is unique things. They understand. They understand, I think, more than they let on. And they know. She also liked toilet paper. I don't know what the heck's with dogs and toilet paper. She'd just tear apart toilet paper. Disgusting habit that was. I don't know. The snottier the better, right? She would just tear it apart. Bean and I had this conversation like more than once, that if she was ever, terminally ill, or, she was blind and she wanted to go, I would give her one last meal, and I would say, you know what, Bean, you can eat as much chicken as you want. And one of the last meals we had together, she passed suddenly. I didn't even know. But one of the last meals we had together was Thanksgiving dinner, and she was begging a lot of people, and a lot of people were kind of like, oh yeah, no problem, Bean, here you go. So I got a little bit of comfort knowing that Bean got a really good fill that day of turkey. So she got a good last meal, or one of the last meals anyways. Yeah, she would sit down, and anytime we had food, Bean was there. She liked plain chips especially. She liked Pringles near the end. A lot of Pringles. She liked to eat whatever you were going to eat. She'd make sure she had her cut, her portion. So she's a good snack dog. Just remembering all the shenanigans she's got into over the years. I remember one time she got into the garbage. She didn't do it very often, but if you left the house and you didn't take Bean with you, she would get angry, and she would take a plastic bag and shred it. That's what she did. That was Bean. She, I don't know where she found these plastic bags, but she would shred them. And one time she got into the garbage, and I guess there was some old ham. I don't think it was that old, but it was some smoked ham, like cold cuts, and it was a significant amount. And she ate the entire thing. It might have been like bean-sized in weight. And that day, I think Beanie had the meat sweats, because she was laying on my bed, sleeping. She was out like a light. And I look over, and I'm like, why is there a wet spot under Bean? And I kind of nudged her, right? And she peed the bed while sleeping. And then when I nudged her, she kind of woke up, and she kind of looked down and was like, uh-oh, what happened? I think she was so stuffed full of ham and had the meat sleeps that she peed herself. And all you could do was laugh and obviously clean your bed, but it was just like she was embarrassed. She didn't know what the heck happened. I think it was 'cause she just ate too much ham. Bean's been on some pretty crazy adventures. I would say she'd had 9 lives, because she did some pretty crazy stuff that should have caught up with her but didn't. And like chasing cars, chasing motorbikes. She hated motorbikes. She hated loud cars. One time she had a misadventure with a coyote trap, and she made out okay. She didn't, nothing broken, nothing. She just kind of was like, uh-oh, I'm caught in a coyote trap. Little dog for a coyote trap, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, she's been a lucky dog. She's had, for instance, she actually, the spider hole. When I was building the spider hole, I had just installed the secondary exit, and Bean decided she liked that culvert, and she come flying down the culvert, not to realize that there's a ladder at the end, and she went into the culvert. I don't know if she knew it was there, but she got in the spider hole, and I went through the other side, and sure enough, Bean's at the bottom of the hole, wagging her tail, excited to see me. Yeah, she's been lucky. Well, being near the end of the year and kind of reflecting back on the time, you kind of want to make every moment count. You just never know when the last time you're gonna see somebody. So you kind of just have to make every moment count. You have to kind of, carpe diem, seize the day. Even for yourself, you don't really know how long you're gonna last. So you gotta make the best of what you got. Even with friends, you never know. Like, was this the last time we're gonna hang out? When you were a kid, for instance, you hung out with a kid next door for years, but you never really knew when the last time you were gonna hang out with them was. Like, they'd move away, and you're like, oh, well, they're done. You didn't expect it. It came out of left field. Kind of same thing goes for any times you lose somebody. It's just like, wow, what happened? Like, yeah, it's hard. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I know Beanie is up there smiling down on us with the biggest plate of chicken you can imagine. Catch you guys on the next one.